Dietary fat is not the enemy. Not only that, it is not all created equal. So one of the things we're going to discuss today is the 4 kinds of fat that you can ingest, what they do in the body. They are not all created equal, but also fat on the body and what creates it, because fat in your diet does not create fat on your body. Here's what makes you fat. Calories. That's what makes you fat. Calories make you fat. It's not about fat, and it's not even about carbs, because that's another one that we still deal with all the time. Carbs make me fat. I don't eat any carbs. No. It's not about a macronutrient. Fat doesn't make you fat. Carbs don't make you fat. Here's what makes you fat. Eating too much, that's going to make you fat, and eating poor quality fat and carbs. And I'll explain what that means in a minute. This is not about carbs, actually, but the difference is, like, there's a big difference between oatmeal or brown rice and a Twinkie. Okay, that's processed garbage with no fiber and no nutrients. That's a bad carbohydrate. Oatmeal, quinoa, brown rice, not a bad carbohydrate. That's not going to kill you. And when eaten in a reasonable amount, okay, you're not going to get fat. Calories make you fat. Why? Because calories are a unit of energy. And you know what fat is? It's a stored energy. So if you eat too much energy in any macronutrient form, be it protein, fat, or carbs, then you're probably going to store fat and you're going to gain weight because you have an energy surplus. Fat, though, is not the enemy. Contrary to popular belief, not only do most fats not cause heart disease, most fats actually help prevent heart disease and actually raise your HDL, which is your good cholesterol. In fact, now all of the doctors, the scientists are doing studies, and they're looking back over the last 50 years. The medical establishment, public health officials, nutritionists, dietitians, they've been telling Americans to eat a low-fat diet. And what's happened? We're huge. We're fatter than ever. And a big part of that is because we've cut the healthy fats out of our diet, and we've replaced them with refined carbohydrates and sugars. Especially, oh my God, I'll never forget this one. When I was like 20 in the early 90s, fat made you fat. Susan Powter. Stop the insanity. Absolutely not true. So I'm consuming massive amounts of fat-free foods, and I was never bigger. And not only in the last 50 years have we gotten fatter on these low-fat diets, but heart disease has gone up, diabetes has gone up, and all of the current research is saying that in any randomized trial looking at weight change, there's no evidence that people have lost more weight on a low-fat diet. Quite the contrary. Calories are calories, and a low-fat diet is not making you thinner. Now, here's where there can be some confusion. Fat per gram is higher in calories. So a gram of fat versus a gram of carbohydrates. A gram of fat is 9 calories. A gram of carbohydrate is 4 calories. But this comes down to the amount of fat you're eating, not the fact that it is fat. So, yeah, sure, if you're eating 3,000 calories of fat, which is like 2,800 grams of fat, or 28 grams, or whatever the number is, of fat, yeah, you're going to be fat, but the same would happen if you ate anything else. So, let's take a look at this. There are 4 different kinds of fat out there. I want you to understand. And we're going to start with the absolute disaster, which is trans fat. Now, trans fat are man-made fats. These do not occur in nature. We create them to process food. It's called hydrogenation. And what we do is we heat vegetable oil up in the presence of hydrogen gas. And this creates a trans fat. You'll see it in your foods as hydrogenated oil or partially hydrogenated oil. Now, these fats are deadly. We should never, ever, ever consume these. If only 3% of your daily calorie allowance a day is trans fat, you raise your risk of heart disease by 23%. So let's say I'm eating 1,500 calories a day. If 45 of my calories a day are trans fat, I've upped my risk of heart disease by 23%, which is a big contributor to the fact that heart disease is the number 1 killer of men and women in this country. So that you never want to touch. All right, that's not normal. Now, saturated fat had gotten a really bad reputation. Saturated fats are animal fats, okay? And it's like, oh, they raise cholesterol. They're so bad for you. Saturated fats are going to kill you. But the truth of the matter is, now, as they're studying saturated fats, they're suggesting that, let's say, a T-bone or a prime rib actually has 60% unsaturated fat and 40% saturated fat. And so it simultaneously also raises your good cholesterol. And they're starting to suggest that the real contributor to elevated levels of low LDL, bad cholesterol, is coming from refined carbohydrates and sugars. That is where they're seeing the elevation in diabetes and cholesterol from all these processed carbohydrates, not from animal protein. And they're going back saying that there never was any scientific evidence to suggest that saturated fats were contributing to heart disease. This is in the Journal of Dr. Who, HU, writing in the Journal of the American College of Nutrition, noted, it's now increasingly recognized that the low-fat campaign has been based on little scientific evidence and may have caused unintended health problems. Or, as Michael Pollan puts it in Defense of Food, the amount of saturated fat in the diet may have little, if any, bearing on the risk of heart disease. And the evidence that increasing polyunsaturated fats in the diet will reduce risk is slim to nil. So now what they're saying is all of these preconceived notions we had about fat are untrue. So do you want to be ingesting massive quantities of saturated fat? No, but saturated fat in a controlled calorie allowance is fine, is safe. What you really need to look out for are trans fats and processed carbohydrates. Now, the next two types of fat we have are considered extremely healthy, and that's monounsaturated and polyunsaturated. And these fats come from sources like vegetables, nuts, seeds. So polyunsaturated would be sunflower oil, flaxseed oils, walnuts. This is where you get your fish. This is where you're getting your omega-3s, which are anti-inflammatory and have great benefits for heart health. Fantastic. Same thing with monounsaturated fats. Those fats, always consumed within a calorie allowance, have great benefits. And the benefits range not just for heart health, but for your brain function. You realize fat composes 60% of your brain, and it's essential to brain function, your learning ability, your memory retention. Fats are especially important for pregnant women since they're integral to fetal brain development. Our cells, fatty acids help our cells stay immovable and flexible, as well as being responsible for building cell membranes. Of course, heart health.
I knew what you were trying to say. I knew.
I'm not drunk. No wobbly pops. Which we had already touched upon. Nerves, our nerve function. Fats compose the material that insulates and protects our nerves. All of these different benefits, lungs, eyes, fats are essential to our eye function, digestion. Here's what's super interesting. Fats in a meal slow down the digestion process so our body has the ability to absorb more nutrients. And they provide a constant level of energy, and they're low glycemic index, which help prevent diabetes. So you want to avoid trans fats, but the rest of it you consume within a healthy diet, and you're going to be perfectly fine. If anything, the polyunsaturated and the monounsaturated are incredibly healthy fats that give you sustained energy and help with your body's optimal function. So you got to get out of this antiquated mindset of, but what about the fat? I need you to worry about the quality of your food and the quantity of your food. That is key and critical. The rest is old news, baby.